A very good evening and welcome to Prime Time News on TV1 for the Newsfirst team. I'm Dithmini De Silva.
And I'm Rochelle Tumodra. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Basil is back. Is the SLPP gearing up for a general election? Peradeniya University student body clashes with the Colombo police. Tear gas and water cannons used against protesters. 2 foreign nationals beaten in Navalapitiya for allegedly travelling in the wrong train compartment. Sri Lanka to absorb 50% of national airline debt, bidding period extended by 45 days. 44 opposition MPs lodged no confidence motion against the Speaker.
When's the election?
Basil Rajapaksa, the founder of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, addressed the delicate matter of upcoming elections in Sri Lanka. Speaking to the press upon his return from an extended period abroad, Rajapaksa asserted that the presidential election must be conducted officially. However, according to Rajapaksa, if the members of parliament collectively decide, parliament can be dissolved to call for a general election.
After an extended stay in America, the founder of the SLPP, Basil Rajapaksa, touched down at Katunayake Airport at around 8:30 a.m. He arrived via a flight operated by Emirates. Rajapaksa's return was met with delegation of SLPPers gathered to greet him. Among those present were Attorney at Law Sakara Karivasam, the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Minister Prasanna Ranatunga and Member of Parliament Namal Rajapaksa. As Basil Rajapaksa stepped out of the airport premises, he was enveloped by party activists.
Officially, the next election is the presidential. However, parliament can be dissolved before that. I'm not in parliament and members of parliament can decide that.
Udayanga Viratunga stressed that the official dates of the parliamentary election will be announced after the Sinhala and Tamil New Year.
Prasanna Ranatunga and others were present in Katunayake. I can assure you that after the Sinhala Tamil New Year, the general election dates will be announced and the SLPP will secure a majority. Basil Rajapaksa is ready to lead our team.
This was the position of the SLPP General Secretary and MP Namal Rajapaksa.
එතුමා පැමිණියා කියන්නේ ඊළඟ මැතිවරණය අනිවාර්යෙන් අපි ජයග්‍රහණය කරනවා කියන්නේ. ඒක එතුමා සමග පක්ෂයත් සමග වාඩි වෙලා සාකච්ඡා කරලා තීන්දුවක් ගත යුතු දෙයක්. නුදුරු දිනයකදී ඒ තීන්දුව ගනි.
මේ දැන් යන පිළිවෙලත් හරි පිළිවෙල නෙමෙයිද යන්නේ?
නෑ දැන් යන පිළිවෙල ආර්ථිකයේ දියුණුවක් දකින්නේ නෑ.
හැබැයි ඔබතුමාලා හිතනවාද මෙවර ඉදිරි ජනාධිපතිවරණයේදී කවුරුවක්වත් හිතන්නේ නැති පුද්ගල ජනාධිපතිවරණයක් වෙයි ජනාධිපතිවරයෙක් වෙයි.
ඔව් එහෙම වෙන්න පුළුවන් කමක් තියෙනවා.
පක්ෂයක් විදිහට ඉදිරි කාල සීමාව තුළ අපි අපේ දේශපාලන ගමන පිළිබඳව තීන්දුව කීපයක් ගන්නවා. සමහර ඒවා අභ්‍යන්තරයි. ඒවා එළිය අපි කියන්නේ නැහැ.
හැබැයි දැන් ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා කියලා තියෙනවා ඔහු ජනාධිපතිවරණයට ඉදිරිපත් වෙනවා එළවෙන. එතකොට දැන් පොහොට්ටුව මොකද ඒකට කරන්නේ?
නෑ ඉතින් රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ජනාධිපතිතුමා එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයෙන් නායකයා. එතුමා එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයෙන් ප්‍රකාශ කළා තියෙනවා. ජනතා විමුක්ති පෙරමුණෙන් එහෙන් අපේක්ෂකයෙක් දාලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි සජබෙන් සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්තයව දාලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් අපි පොහොට්ටුව විදිහට අපි අපේ තීන්දුව ගමු. අනිත් පක්ෂ දිහා බලන්න ඕනේ නැහැ.
Basil Rajapaksa directly headed to his residence located in Battaramulla from the airport. SLPP leader Mahinda Rajapaksa, among others, were present for talks with Basil Rajapaksa.
දැන් ඉස්සරහට එන්නේ ජනාධිපතිවරණයේද මහමැතිවරණයේද
මොන මැතිවරණය ආවත් අපි සූදානම්.
උදයංග විරතුංග මහත්මයා හැම කිව්වා මේ අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මහමැතිවරණයක් තමයි එන්නේ කියලා.
එයා දන්නවා ඇති එහෙනම්. මම දන්නේ නැහැ. හැම දෙයකටම සංවිධානයලා තියෙන. ඒක ජනාධිපති මැතිවරණයකට මහමැතිවරණ කියන්නේ. ඉතින් මහමැතිවරණ ගැන දන්නවනේ උදයංග විරතුංග මහත්මයාගෙන් අහන්න ඕනේ. එතුමා දන්නවා ඉතින් එහෙනම් අපිට ඇති.
දැනට තියෙන සාකච්ඡාව ජනාධිපතිවරණයක් කියන එක තමයි සාකච්ඡාවක් නෙවෙයි. ඒක ඇත්තෙම ජනාධිපතිවරණයේ තියෙනවා. ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඒක අපිට කැබිනට් පන්ලේදී කියලා තියෙනවා.
Chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party Maithripala Sirisena reacted to Basil Rajapaksa's return.
Basil Rajapaksa මහතා දැන් අද ආවන ලංකාවට ඔබතුමාලට මොනවද අභියෝගයක් වෙයිද?
අභියෝගයක් මටද අපිටද? ඉතින් ඒ රැළව මං ඇරියානේ 2015. ගෙදරම ඇරියානේ. මට කොයිද අභියෝග වෙන්නේ එක්කෙනෙක්වත් එයාලගේ ලොක්කෝ පොඩි අය පොඩ්ඩොයි ලොක්කොයි ඔක්කොම.
එතුමා කියනවානේ දැන් බලේ පෙන්නනවා කියන්නේ.
කවුද එයාද? ඔව් ඉතින් එහෙම තමයි දේශපාලඥයෝ වුණාම ඉතින් මේ දැන් මැතිවරණ වර්ෂයක් මේ දේවල් කියනවා ඉතින් බලය මොකද්ද බාහු බලයේද ආයුධ බලයේද ජනතා බලයේද අපි මොකද්ද දන්නේ නැහනේ. ඉතින් අපි නම් ජනතා බලය තමයි ඉදිරියේදී පෙන්වන්නේ.
Professor Charita Herath expressed his views regarding the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna.
ලොකු විප්ලවයක් ඉතින් දැන් කරන්න පුළුවන් තත්ත්වයක් නැහැ නේද?
It is not possible for a big revolution now. After all the losses that could have happened, we fell to the brink of a political collapse. We saw what happened to the country after the power we got from the 6.9 million people. Even though they had experience, when they got power, they worked like small children. I don't think it's possible to produce miracles that could not have been achieved with a president with 6.9 million people and 2/3 of the parliament.
ඉතින් මේ මොකක්වත් නැතුව කොහෙද නැති කෙනෙක් ජනාධිපති කරලා කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා මට හිතෙන්නේ නැහැ.
This was a response of the Samagi Janabala Vegya.
ආර්ථික ඝාතකයෝ පිළිගන්න ඔන්න දැන් අද පෙළපාලි පෙරහැරවල් කියන ඒක තමයි මේ රටේ මේ දවස්වල
This is the biggest joke in the country these days. Everyone knows that the court gave a verdict regarding the main reason for bankruptcy in this country, on the perpetrators and individuals responsible for this economic calamity. Mahinda Rajapaksa, Basil Rajapaksa, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Ajit Niwad Kabral, a person who returned, is one who was named an economic hitman. Basil Rajapaksa was welcomed with a parade. Look at the state of the country.
වැල් පාලමින් එගොඩ කරපු රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයා වැල් පාලමින් එගොඩ කරපු තවත් එක්කෙනෙක් තමයි අද මේ එයාපෝට් එකකින් ආවේ.
Earlier this evening, during a protest held in front of the University of Colombo, tensions escalated as a group, which included members of the University of Peradeniya Student Union, clashed with the police.
A protest took place opposite the University of Colombo, organised by the University of Peradeniya Students Union. The protest aimed to address the erosion of fundamental rights that impact the general population, including access to free education and healthcare. Notably, students from various other universities across the island also participated in this demonstration. Earlier in the day, the Cinnamon Gardens police made a formal request to the Colombo Chief Magistrate, Prasanna Alvis, seeking an order to halt a protest march organised by several university student bodies. However, the magistrate rejected the request. Multiple buses carrying students from University of Peradeniya underwent repeated inspections by the police during their journey. Later in the afternoon, student activists congregated near the Colombo University to voice their grievances. The police advised them not to obstruct the road. Despite the police instructions, the students persisted with their protest march. Consequently, measures were taken to disperse the group. Subsequently, the police deployed water cannons and tear gas to disperse the students. An official investigation has been initiated in response to an incident at the Navalapitiya railway station where 2 foreign tourists were reportedly assaulted by 2 railway employees. Two British nationals who were travelling on the Podimanike train from Colombo to Badulla found themselves embroiled in an ugly incident. Their journey commenced at the Kandy railway station. Upon investigation, Railway Superintendent N.M. Jayindipolage revealed that the door had been removed from the train, citing that despite holding third-class tickets, they had occupied seats in the first-class compartment. Sumedha Somaratna, president of the Sri Lanka Railway Station Masters Association, confirmed that a railway guard had instructed the foreign passengers to disembark. Despite these instructions, the 2 foreigners had refused to vacate the train compartment, and Sumedha Somaratna noted as a result they were removed from the train. The Navalapitiya police indicated that no possibility of arresting foreigners exists in this context. Meanwhile, HMK Bandara, the General Manager of Sri Lanka Railways, has directed the Railway Security Department to conduct an investigation and submit a comprehensive report regarding this incident.
The Northern Province fishing folk staged a demonstration again in Jaffna today, demanding a permanent solution to the perennial issue of Indian fishers poaching in the sea of Sri Lanka.
The protest commenced this morning in Jaffna opposite the district secretariat. Multiple movements in the fishing industry participated in this protest organised by the Northern Provincial Fishermen's Association. The protesters proceeded to the Northern Province Governor's office to hand over a petition. Later, the protesters visited the Consulate General of India in Jaffna to hand over the petition. However, the police prevented the protesters, who moved towards the Indian consulate, and only several representatives were allowed to enter the premises.
இந்த இழுவமடி ரோலரால எங்களுடைய பாரிய வளங்களும்
Why are you blocking us? We are not going to kill anyone. We are Sri Lankan citizens and so are you.
The Sri Lankan cabinet has resolved to assume responsibility for the $510 million debt owed by Sri Lankan Airlines to the government. This decision was based on a proposal put forth by the President, who also serves as the Minister of Finance.
With the transfer of the debt to the government, preparations are underway to finalize the restructuring process of Sri Lankan Airlines.
Ports and Aviation Minister Nimal Siripala De Silva announced today that the deadline for submitting bids for the investment in Sri Lankan Airlines has expired. However, the minister revealed that the deadline will be extended by an additional 45 days.
Now, this restructuring process is expected to take about 6 months maximum, and with this process, this debt of 1.2 billion is expected to come down to about 500 million.
Simultaneously, the International Finance Corporation, the investment consultancy arm of the World Bank, has recommended that Sri Lankan Airlines reduce its substantial debt, which currently stands at a staggering $1.2 billion.
The restructuring unit has got a letter from IFC. So they have suggested that it is very unlikely we will get very good offers, or reputed airlines will come and take over the management of Sri Lankan Airlines with a debt of rupees 1.2 billion. Having taken this matter into consideration, His Excellency the President Ranil Wickremesinghe, as the Finance Minister, tendered the cabinet paper yesterday, cabinet memorandum yesterday to the cabinet, emphasizing this factor and the need to restructure this, as well as to ensure the job security of 6,000 employees who are employed in the Sri Lankan Airlines. So having taken into consideration all these facts, His Excellency the President has been very graciously agreed for these things, to take over the debt of rupees of 210 million US dollars due from Sri Lankan Airlines to Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank. Another 68.2 million US dollars OD overdraft in the Bank of Ceylon. And already international bond of US dollars billion 175, the Treasury has tendered a guarantee. And Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank, there is another Sri Lankan rupees 31.4 billion for which the Treasury guarantee and letter of comfort has been given. And already the Treasury has absorbed amount of rupees 102 billion debt which has to be given to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. Now when we take all these things together, the balance sheet of the Sri Lankan Airlines, the debt will be reduced to about half of the amount which is there now. By about 50%, the total debt is reduced as a result of this. Government is expecting this process to be completed within a period of 6 months, and we will get money from the catering as well as from the ground handling. And we are confident that we will be able to get more than 500 million from restructuring this airline.
The Cabinet has made a decision to allocate funds from the Treasury to Sri Lankan Airlines during the ongoing restructuring process.
The Treasury will provide around 60 to 70 million US dollars for a period of 6 months for Sri Lankan Airlines. There will be no salary and allowance increments during this time. If lack of regulation is observed, we will not hesitate to change the management.
The minister commented on the government objectives in restructuring Sri Lankan Airlines.
Catering, ground handling, airline.
Catering, ground handling and the airline is owned by one entity, which is Sri Lankan Airlines. If we are selling it, we will only offer a 49% stake to a foreign investor. If a Sri Lankan investor comes forward, we will consider increasing the stake based on the size of the investment. The brand Sri Lankan will not be lost. The money that comes in will be directly moved to the Treasury. 500 million US dollars can be sought from ground handling and catering. However, no one would come forward with a colossal debt. We are trying to attract the investors.
Some amazing news coming from Sri Lankan Airlines today, of course. The government has decided to absorb 500 million US dollars of debt held by Sri Lankan Airlines. Now, the government was looking for investors to purchase Sri Lankan Airlines for quite some time. There were no bidders. They extended the period. There were still no bidders. And now the government has decided to absorb 500 million US dollars of the debt of Sri Lankan Airlines. Now, this is similar to me purchasing a car or taking a car on lease, moreover, and then giving it to you and paying off the lease while you enjoy all of the benefits. This is what is happening to the people in Sri Lanka through this decision, of course, to absorb 500 million US dollars of the debt of Sri Lankan Airlines. Now, right now, $1 US is trading at 308 rupees. Now, at 308 rupees into 500 million US dollars, that means that 154 billion Sri Lankan rupees has been absorbed by the Treasury. Now, excuse the fancy words when I say absorbed by the Treasury. What it really means is that now you and I, the citizens of Sri Lanka, are the ones who have to foot this bill. How much you ask per person? 7,000 rupees per person. Per person includes every infant that opens their eyes in this beautiful country is now in debt 7,000 rupees because of the decisions that were taken by those who ran the country and, of course, the higher up at Sri Lankan Airlines, not decisions taken by either you or I. And because of this debt, now in a family of four, if you are a family of four at home watching this program right now, you have to foot 35,000 rupees for the loss incurred by Sri Lankan Airlines. Now, for a time, Sri Lankan Airlines was, of course, managed by the Emirates airline, and it was making profits. And at a time like that, it was this individual, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who made the policy decision that the government should take over control of Sri Lankan Airlines. He fired Peter Hill, British national, who was running Sri Lankan Airline at a massive profit, thousands and thousands of millions coming in profit every year. But the decision was made to fire him and to take over the control of Sri Lankan Airlines. And this individual who made that policy decision went ahead and appointed this individual, Nishantha Wickramasinghe. You might think that he came there on merit, but of course the story is quite different. This individual is the brother-in-law of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, his sister's brother to be exact. And this individual was a person who, of course, made the policy decisions on Sri Lankan Airlines that resulted in much of the losses that were suffered by Sri Lankan Airlines. Now, this $500 million loss that is being absorbed by the Treasury, of course, includes losses that were suffered by various other transactions made by Sri Lankan Airlines. And these include, of course, the recent procurement of aircrafts from the French Airbus company. $2 million were paid to an intermediary for this procurement. The procurement process was in complete violation of accepted standards here in Sri Lanka. The agreement was marred in corruption. And of course, the government of good governance that came into power after that, the current president, who was the then prime minister, made the decision to terminate this agreement. And guess what? Upon the termination of this agreement, Sri Lankan Airlines had to pay $98 million in damages to the French Airbus company. So 98 million and 2 million, $100 million right there. And don't mistake this. The same thing that happened to that $100 million is going to happen to this $500 million that has been absorbed by the government right now. This seems to be a continuous trend, of course, of decisions that are being taken in Sri Lanka. The higher-ups, the leaders take these abysmal, inept decisions, and you and I are saddled with footing the bill. Of course, the situation of Sri Lankan Airlines is not a result of bad management within Sri Lankan Airlines, or correction, of course, the performance of the employees at Sri Lankan Airlines or their management practices there. It is, of course, the decisions of the higher up, the policy decisions that have been taken at Sri Lankan Airlines that has resulted in this massive loss. This massive loss that the government has now seen it fit to completely ignore. They have taken this loss and they have cleaned their hands with the loss, thrown it away and said, well, you can foot the bill. That is what is happening in Sri Lanka right now. And if one wonders how journalists or the media can comment on such a matter of that needs massive expertise, of course, when the facts are so obvious, when it is blatantly obvious what has happened here and the unjust way that things have happened, you really don't need that much of experience to comment on.
In news we have just received, Facebook, Instagram and Messenger are currently experiencing outages related to login sessions in multiple countries. Meta social media platforms are currently not working, with both Instagram and Facebook pulling up failure to load error pages.
To more local news, the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka says that the connectivity projects between the two countries will reduce costs.
The energy and the land connectivity, both are big game changer areas. In the field of energy particularly, we have a large number of projects. We have an oil pipeline connecting South India with Sri Lanka. We have an LNG supply line that we are talking about to bring LNG to Sri Lanka for use for production of energy, which will reduce costs here of energy. There is, of course, the grid interconnection that we are talking about, which is for interchange, exchange of electricity, export from India and export from Sri Lanka. Eventually, the huge potential that Sri Lanka has in terms of producing renewable energy, wind and solar, cannot be utilized simply by usage within Sri Lanka, and it requires an outlet for export to other parts of the world through India. And so this grid connectivity is actually focused on creating that public good that will then, create the motivation for others to step in and expand this particular aspect of our exchange. On the other hand, the land bridge connectivity, the confidence emerges from the fact that our own infrastructure is now world class in terms of surface transport. If you look at what we are doing today, we build 30 kilometers road highways, not roads, every day. 30 kilometers. Our target is to increase it to 40 kilometers. That is what we are targeting this year in 2024. So there is, as you know, a number of big infrastructure connectivity projects, land bridge projects have also been implemented in India. The most recently, the Atal Bridge in Mumbai, which is a 22-kilometer bridge. So there is this growing capacity in India. And in all of what we do, whether it is the unique digital identity, whether it is the energy sector or in the infrastructure sector, our effort has been that wherever we have capacities, we must contribute as far as possible based on Sri Lanka's preferences to contribute to their growth and development. That's, broadly speaking, my answer to your question.
So there were ideas of sending fishermen towards the Pork Strait, Indian fishermen and the Arabian seafood trading as well. Anything we could get from you on that?
These are poor farmers on both sides of the Pork Strait. And, this is a conversation that we will have with true earnest, with a desire to resolve the issue as best as we can. But as I said, this is not something that has happened today. In fact, there is a reducing incident of arrests by Sri Lanka over a longer period. If you compare with the period earlier from now, there has also been people from Sri Lanka who cross over to the other side as well. And it makes sense, therefore, to create other types of livelihood activities that takes away this problem away and benefits the communities on both sides more. So there would be various ways in which this can be done. But as a diplomat, I wouldn't fish into fishing waters. I'd like to have the experts do it. The fishermen themselves come up with suggestions on that.
At the United Nations Human Rights Council, Sri Lanka stressed that the interference in the internal affairs of any sovereign country cannot and should not be tolerated.
In Gaza, the disregard for human rights and international law is starkly apparent, emphasizing the urgent need for an immediate ceasefire and measures to ensure humanitarian aid reaches those in need. The failure to address such profound civilian suffering undermines the credibility of the international human rights framework. Polarization of the Council through politicization of human rights is a hindrance to achieve its objectives. Measures to protect human rights must be guided by the Council's founding principles and conducted through constructive dialogue, cooperation and mutual respect, considering national complexities and challenges. The HRC must cease its disproportionate scrutiny of nations in the global south through intrusive mechanisms and turning a blind eye to violations elsewhere in order to restore its credibility. Unfortunately, this is not the case with regard to Sri Lanka, where HRC's continuous and disproportionate focus is unhelpful. We appreciate the positive comments made by states acknowledging the progress on the ground in my country. In the context of protection and promotion of human rights in the global south, Sri Lanka supports the One China principle, and we note China's cooperation with human rights mechanisms. Interference in the internal affairs of any sovereign country cannot and should not be tolerated.
The Sri Lankan cabinet has approved a proposal for the establishment of Land Management Trust for formal allocation of land owned by government and statutory bodies for investment activities. The proposal was furnished by the President to the cabinet.
It is essential to establish a mechanism with proper authority from the time of identifying land with suitable potential to the formal release of land to investors following a transparent system. Accordingly, the proposal to establish the Land Management Trust was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa raised concerns in Parliament over the failure to implement the cabinet decision regarding the Parate execution.
2018 වර්ෂයට සාපේක්ෂව 2023 වර්ෂය වන විට
It was reported that around 48.3% of medium-scale businesses have closed in 2023 in comparison to 2018. It was reported that there is a clear reduction of 245,400 jobs, micro, small and medium-scale businesses from 2018 to 2022. These are census reports. Does the government have a definite program to provide jobs to those who have lost their jobs? These are advertisements to implement parade executions. Where is the cabinet decision you reached? It is not being implemented. An order should be issued on banks suspending the implementation of the parade executions. Why is the central bank not doing it? What is the purpose of the government? Is the government spineless? Why are the decisions you reached not being sent to commercial banks? If standing orders are changed and we are allocated additional time to respond to questions, we can do so. We received this question yesterday. We will come up with a proper solution and present it on Thursday.
A coalition of opposition members of parliament submitted a motion of no confidence against Speaker Mahinda Abeyewardene.
44 opposition members of parliament submitted a motion of no confidence against Speaker Mahinda Abeyewardene. Ranjith Madhuma Bandara, Secretary General of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, personally handed over the document to Deputy Secretary General Chaminda Kularatna. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, Samagi Jana Balawegaya MPs Maithripala Sirisena from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Dasiri Jasekara from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and M.A. Sumandiran from the Lanka Tamil Arasu Katchi signed the motion. In addition, MPs representing the Freedom People's Congress Group, Dallas Alha Peruma, Professor G.L. Piris, Professor Charita Herath as well as Wasanthayapa Bandara, along with Jataka Jana Balawegaya MP Vijita Herath, signed the motion. The heart of the motion lies in the alleged violation of constitutional principles when passing the Online Safety Act. The opposition contends that certain clauses were pushed through despite objections, whilst also disregarding the recommendations made by the Supreme Court. The motion notes that the faith in the Speaker in Parliament has collapsed. The US Supreme Court has struck down efforts by individual states to disqualify Donald Trump from running for president using an anti-insurrection constitutional clause. The United States Supreme Court has rejected an effort by Colorado to remove Donald Trump's name from the state's Republican primary ballot, delivering the former president a major victory as he seeks his party's nomination. The justices unanimously reversed a 19th December decision by Colorado's top court to kick Trump off the ballot under the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which includes a section that prohibits individuals from holding public office if they have participated in an insurrection. Trump's critics have accused him of inciting and supporting the attack on the U.S. Capitol on the 6th of January 2021 in an attempt to subvert the 2020 presidential election, which Democrat Joe Biden won and Trump lost. The ruling ends efforts in Colorado, Illinois, Maine and elsewhere to kick Trump off the ballot because of his attempts to undo his loss in the 2020 election to Biden, whom he is likely to face again in November's presidential election. The ruling comes a day before Super Tuesday, the day when the largest number of states hold their presidential primaries and caucuses. The 14th Amendment bars people from holding U.S. office, including the presidency, if they have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But the Supreme Court, which has a 6-3 conservative majority, said that only Congress can enforce the provision against federal office holders and candidates. Trump also had been kicked off the ballot in Maine and Illinois based on the 14th Amendment, but those decisions were put on hold pending the Supreme Court's ruling in the Colorado case. In the Colorado case, Trump's eligibility had been challenged in court by a group of 6 voters in the western state, 4 Republicans and 2 independents, who portrayed him as a threat to democracy and sought to hold him accountable for the Capitol riot. That 2021 attack was led by supporters of the then president, who sought to stop Congress from certifying Biden's election victory.
Professor Boris Groysberg from Harvard Business School delivered a lecture on alleviating your business insight and self-worth. The event was organized by the Chamber of Young Lankan Entrepreneurs, or COIL.
Day 2 of an interactive session on the topic Alleviate Your Business Insight and Self-Worth was conducted by Professor Boris Groysberg.
So you're going to have a lot of free time.
Because I know you read the case, am I correct?
The interactive session with Professor Boris Groisberg will be held in Colombo from the 4th to the 6th of March. Newsfirst is a media sponsor of the event.
Grandchildren. Do you know what the definition of a grandchild?
Up next is Big Match Fever. The world's second oldest cricket encounter, the Battle of the Blues between Royal College Colombo and St. Thomas College Mount Lavinia, dates back to 1897 when the first game was played. The Battle of the Blues is also the only consecutive annual big encounter played consecutively today. The Battle of the Blues is played for the prestigious D.S. Senanayaka Memorial Shield. Royal College have won 36 times and claimed it last year for the first time in 7 years.
We are well prepared. We reached the semi-final in the one-day tournament and played well in the two-day tournament as well. All players are well positioned and we are practicing according to a plan. We are ready for the game. 4 batsmen have over 500 runs to their name. We also have 3 all-rounders and we hope to have a good game.
Royal College Colombo performed exceptionally well at the inter-school cricket tournament.
The team is well prepared. We have 1 outright win and 4 first innings wins. The team is well positioned. Ramiro Pereira is the highest wicket taker. We have 2 batsmen with more than 500 runs to their name. As the Royal College captain, I can say we hope to play well at the Battle of the Blues and bring glory to the school.
The 145th Battle of the Blues will be played from Thursday at the SSC grounds in Colombo.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight.
Thank you for watching and good night.